Hi everybody, Leo Brady here with AMovieGuy.com. It's an honor to have Jack Roth and writer, director, editor Joe Martin of their new film Us and Them. So starting off, Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was that started the idea to write this film?
Sure, yeah. So I come from a sort of more working class background, more blue collar, initial over there.
Yeah.
And but when I started trying to work in films, it's a slightly more affluent community, I guess. And one of the things I started to notice was how separated these two worlds were, and how no one was really communicating amongst each other.
Yeah.
And I felt like, wow, there's going to be like a tension that there is a tension that's developing there. You know, when you don't communicate with your neighbour, then things start to get heated and misunderstandings happen.
Yeah.
And that was because of the inequality problem that's happening across the world.
Right.
And so I was thought, let's explore that. You know, that's something that's quite interesting. This class divide that's happening, and it was almost more of a warning that, like, wow, the politics, when this kind of thing historically has happened, politics start to get very weird.
Yeah.
And then, of course, after we shot basically, Trump, Brexit, everything happened.
This precedes Brexit and Trump.
Right.
And now it feels like we couldn't have hit the nail better on the head.
Yes.
You know, it's perfect, and I think the audience is desperate for this debate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for you, Jack, your career's sort of off to a quick start. I mean, like, you had a role in Star Wars. That's a pretty awesome thing to have happen.
Absolutely.
Rogue
It's
One,
exciting.
right?
Absolutely.
Get the title right. Brimstone just came out this weekend.
Yeah.
And now this. So, talk about a little bit about what that whole process has been like leading up to this. I mean,
The most beautiful thing about the three projects you've just talked about,
Yeah.
they're so completely different.
right.
Brimstone is, I felt like I was working with Hitchcock.
Right.
Because Martin Coolhaven's an amazing man, and what he does and the time he spends on each script and the piece as a whole,
Yeah.
it's phenomenal to be around.
Yeah.
Rogue One feels like I'm in the old 70s Star Wars movies, which is just the most exciting boyhood dream you could ever do.
Yep.
And then this was my chance to try and show all of the skills and talents and acting ideas that I've ever had over my career and let them loose on the roll. I got to really funnel out and show what I can do.
Yeah.
He gave me the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, well, let's talk about a little bit about that. I mean, this may be a bit unfair, and you're probably going to get a lot of questions like this, but it seemed to me that you were channeling your father a lot in Reservoir Dogs. Like, there's a feeling of, like...
It's interesting.
Yeah.
But the problem is, what we've got to battle with is, I think I'm always going to get that comparison because we look so similar.
Yeah.
Jesus, I wish I had some more of my mother's characteristics, you know what I mean? I wouldn't be battling with this.
Yes.
But I feel like I don't take that in a bad light. I think of him as an inspiration. And I didn't have drama school.
Yeah.
So the way that I learned was from my father, was from the old directing kings like Scorsese, Sergio Leone,
Right.
Coppola. You know, these are my references.
Right.
And shit, where are you going to learn if not from the best?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Now, Joe...
And I think as well, like it's quite a unique role. The demands of it are quite extreme.
Yeah.
He has to go through quite humorous, tense moments when he's working under complete pretense. You know, there's a lot going on there where, yeah, I think as Jack says, perhaps because there's a similarity, family similarity, but it feels to me like a different performance from Reservoir Dogs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it has its...
At no point did I watch Reservoir Dogs and go, I'm going to do this.
Right.
I think it's
Right.
more, there are certain characteristics me and my father share that are instantly recognizable. There's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
You know, but that's not a bad thing.
No.
I think if I were a blacksmith's son and I followed in his footsteps,
Yeah.
it would be fine.
Yes.
It's just because he's an actor that
Definitely.
people think it's off.
Well, Joe, talk a little bit about like your inspiration for this film, because I mean, for me, a lot of like what I took away from it was Michael Haneke's Funny Games, because that's a movie where he sort of takes, you know, a guy who is kidnapping a family and sort of making a statement for himself against them. Did you have any other films that you sort of looked back at and said, okay, I kind of want to make it in this way?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big films that is a reference to is Two Marmian, which is the Jean-Luc Godard film.
Yeah.
And I did, when I was at film school, my dissertation was on May 68 on political modernism. And Jean-Luc Godard at that point made Breathless and his kind of classic films, and the French New Wave was one of the biggest filmmakers, if not the biggest filmmaker in the world, and turned his back on it. And as a result of May 68 to become part of a Marxist-Leninist political filmmaking group called the Zieglerberg Group. And the culmination of those projects that they made as Zieglerberg Group was To Gardier. And that was their attempt to try and make something that has a political message, but also has a mainstream feel to it as well. And that film has a lot of dark comedy and has very stylized, but it's also very Brechtian, where you're constantly trying to keep the audience up. And so I think that's what this film has. I think when the people, a lot of the references seem to be 90s that people pick up on. I actually think that's because a lot of the 90s guys were so influenced by the 70s guys that if you're like a guy that's obsessed with 70s films, then everyone sort of says, oh, this is like the 90s, and it's like, well, no, really, because these things just come in 20 years.
You always borrow and steal from the best. That's what Bowie said.
For sure.
You know, most of the best things he ever did, he claimed was stolen. He just won't tell you which ones they were.
Well, let's talk about your performance here. So, I mean, did you kind of have to like psych yourself up a little bit? I mean, this is all you. I mean, this is really, there's a lot of you monologuing or, you know,
but that was always the concern. The big worry was knowing that the film would only work if we had a central performance that was really strong, really magnetic and charismatic, and just it had to hang on Jack's shoulders really. And I was terrified of trying to find my actor, and that's what's so great working with Jack, because he just has the right energy. He just understood what it needed.
Definitely.
And that's why maybe, like, I'm sorry if I felt a bit defensive when you said about compared it to Reservoir Dogs, but it really is an incredibly difficult performance you had to do that. I feel like it nails, never says it nails. And you shouldn't, and it shouldn't be underappreciated, like the levels that can change.
Definitely.
It's hard to make things that effortless. It is quite hard. Also, yes, there was psyching up, but I think the most work was our prep. We had to figure out who he was, set the rules, and then you can go wherever you need to go. You can play upon them, you know, you can riff, he can bring it back, he can make me go further. You know, once I had Danny set, I felt like we could do anything. We could take him anywhere and we could figure out how to respond.
We really worked hard to make sure that we knew exactly where they were. And then after, because you know, we filmed this in tight schedule. You know, it's
living in the house. I didn't leave. So it kind of was, you know, I was living it.
So we had to be like ready to go, man. Like, this is like, you know, old school kind of filmmaking, and that's why we just did a lot of prep work to get there.
Well, and you talked a little bit about like what you're hearing from fans here at South by Southwest. I mean, what kind of response were you hoping that you'd get out of a lot of people when they see this? Because it's like 99% versus 1% in some ways, and it's a movie that could either piss people off or it could make them say, hell yeah, and you don't know who they're going to cheer for.
But that's what we want. We don't want the middle of the road, and we're not giving you the answer. We're trying to create a debate. And that's what it is. You know, that's the important thing is you're not going to get the answers to that question from this film, but you may go home, and that's where social change will happen.
And in a weird way, you miss, not you, but if someone watches the film and thinks there should be like a clear response to it, they're almost misunderstanding. The whole idea is the film is like this ball of confusion and of people with different motives and the crossing, and that's the point, because we don't have the clear answer as Jack says. We're trying to ignite a debate. We want discussion. That's what we're really about. And so when we had this screen, you know, it is farcical. Like, it is meant to be dark and comic, tradition. And last night the screening we had was sensational, because we didn't know how it was going to go, and it just played down with people being like fist bumping and cheering. We had a moment's applause in one of the scenes, which was just unbelievable. We had so much laughter.
Absolutely.
But this audience, I think, because it's a young millennial audience that kind of have a lot of the same sort of gripes that we did, that just played so fantastically.
I was worried that this was going to be a niche film, very English. And the fact that we're in Austin, Texas, and people are loving it, just shows you that this is something that needs to be seen or debated.
Definitely. I mean, I think like for me watching it, it was just like this feels like these are the type of films we are going to start seeing more of. I mean, it's almost like you guys are ahead of the game because it's the environment we're living in.
Like I've said, the only thing we could have done that would have been more on the nose is if one of us was wearing a Trump hat. That would have been it. You know what I mean? We missed that. We just couldn't know. But it feels like, if a filmmaker isn't providing their audience with the debate, or at least something that provokes change. What are we doing?
Right.
We're not respecting our audiences because this is what people want to discuss right now.
100%. So, talk a little bit. I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Talk a little about working with Joe. I mean, what was that experience like? I mean,
great. It felt like the two of us against the world. Or it kind of felt like, and especially me, I felt isolated. I put myself in isolation at the house. I lived in it, so not only was all the film set in the house, but then I lived there as well, and it felt like I never left.
Right.
And really, I liked that. It created the kind of trapped psychosis that I felt the character needed. But then we love the same things. We love the same references, inspirations, films. So it's easy for us to...
Yeah, we have a similar... Maybe you're even picking up on this vibe right now. We have similar personalities where we're both quite excitable, we speak quite quickly, we're quite hot-headed, and we, there's a couple of points when we'd be like, we'd have a quick row, but we were getting to the answers.
We've got to get on with it.
Yeah. But we're the sort of people that we'd rather just go, what about this, no, you're right, no, I'm right, no. Like, that's just kind of our, we have the word that it was very brotherly.
Well, there's a lot of intense scenes. Were there any scenes specifically, lighting a car on fire, were there any scenes that were just really difficult to make sure you either got it on one take or getting it, especially even for you, intensity, having to sort of like push the father around and...
The length of dialogue. That's the scariest thing. And not saying it all in the same voice. It can get so dull so quickly. And that's
and what's beautiful about the way that but what I really appreciate then is about this sort of open speech where the manifesto of the group is put forward, as it were. And the way it's written is kind of a bit simplistic, and so but the point is that's how he thinks about it. Like so it has to be delivered. The comedy comes from delivering it quite seriously, but if you do it over earnestly in that scene, then it becomes too we're trying to preach at people, which is not what it's trying to do. So it's such a weird balance. And Jack just gets it just spot on, where it's just like, you know what I mean? It's a bit of everything.
It felt like
and that was tough because it was not,
it's not an unrelatable character. I think that was great.
And I think
read it and I was like, we can do this.
And I think every character too, in its own way, is has nuggets where you can relate to each one of them, where there's really no villain. I mean, right away, people might think your character is supposed to be the villain, but it sort of takes us on this amazing path of we don't know what's going to happen.
Every time you think something, like you said, the rug's pulled from under you.
That's the whole point. Like the way that we made it is to try and constantly keep the audience, because it's a chaotic world we live in right now. This is a film of our times where you don't necessarily know no one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Trump might issue an order where no one can come back into the country.
Don't project anything, because he's right. He gets it right. So don't say anything. But Jesus, I don't want to know when I die.
But so the film is meant to embody that sense of chaos, which I think is also a very young internet kind of vibe. And that's what it was meant to do. So it was difficult.
So wrapping up a little bit, let's talk about what you guys have next planned for yourselves in your careers. Where's the future heading? I mean, we're getting this film out, I'm assuming, making sure that people see it.
Absolutely, that's what we're looking forward to getting it out and get some interest, and let's see where we go from there.
The great thing about it is
I don't work together again.
I don't feel it's hard to sell. The music is great. You know what I mean? I think the performances. We don't have the biggest stars in the world, but we've got actors. And it's important.
Like yourself.
Well, hopefully.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I think the script writing, the directing, it felt like it was almost an 8mm camera at points where we were creating magic on the fly, which
Right.
is that Scorsese reference, you know, where
Definitely.
it's you and someone creating some magic where everyone kind of appreciates it, and it's a team effort.
Yeah.
And it was just, yeah,
It's a
pleasure.
throwback film, you know. It's not trying to be. A lot of films that are about an issue, it's like they're really worthy. I don't think this film's really worthy. As you said, there's no villain. We didn't want there to be like people would assume because Jack's going into the house that he would be the villain, and he's not, and he's actually the protagonist. So what the hell, you know? But then there's no clear bad guy. Which we even had a question last night: who's the bad guy? And do you want to be the bad guy?
Because then we know who you're
Yeah.
voting for. Absolutely.
Right.
Instantly, when you tell us who you think it is, we know what side you're on, and that's the interesting thing.
And it's
That is.
really it's a film that's about good acting, you know, storytelling that's interesting and different, and hopefully shows you something. It's you know, that takes you on a different kind of journey,
Yeah,
right?
challenging the audience.
Challenging. We everything that this film's trying to keep the audience involved, to be active.
I think-
and we want them to be constantly thinking.
Yeah, don't go to dinner afterwards, but you go to dinner and talk about it, and then you go home and think about it. You know, these are
Yeah.
important things. That, you know.
I think you guys did all of that. I do. I think it's the type of movie that knocks it out of the park, and your performance was great. And we look forward to you two working again.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thanks,
man.
man.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
us.
Cheers. Awesome. Thanks, guys.